All right, everybody, we are back this week for the highly anticipated UFC 314 Volkanovski versus Lopes preview, predictions, and breakdown. And in the co-main event, you have an explosive lightweight fight between the former title challenger, former multiple-time Bellator champion, Iron Michael Chandler, taking on the hope for Ireland in the UK, the hope for a champion who is a baddie in Paddy the Baddie Pimblett. So without any further ado, let's get this started and step into the ring. All right, everybody. Not as crazy of an intro as normal, not as super animated, etc., etc. I've been pretty disappointed with my picks, guys. I'm going to be the first one to say it. Overall, I feel like the analysis and the picks for most are on point, but there's just certain fighters where I have way too much confidence in them, and it's because I seem to love the Dana White Contender Series, guys. And sometimes we're right on. Like, we've been pretty good about Gene Silva. We were right about Quillen Sal killed. I mean, there's been plenty that we're correct about, but sometimes we take those wins on Contender into too much consideration against guys who fight high-level competition in the UFC. Maybe they don't win. Maybe they, have okay performances but end up losing. I can give you two examples. Reese McGee and O'Day Osborne from last week. Those two fighters, along with Pat Sabatini beating Joe Anderson Brito. I wasn't super shocked by Sabatini winning because we knew his grappling was supremely high level. I was surprised that it made it to a decision. I think I said it on the predictions that I thought it was either going to be a submission from Sabatini or a knockout from Brito. I think the fight played out in that way, but it was just like 12 and a half or 13 minutes out of 15 minutes of control time from Pat Sabatini. I thought Brito was going to touch the chin. He never got a chance to get out of the starting blocks. And once he got taken down, the top pressure, the control, it was just all gas, no brakes from Sabatini. Didn't give Brito any space, went for the Von Flue choke, looked to take his back, beat him up with ground and pound, landed elbows from the top. I mean, he just didn't give him any room to breathe. It was a very similar performance to Brady's win over Leon Edwards, which we got that one pretty spot on. I don't know. I just didn't trust the chin of Sabatini, and it came back to bite me. So we have to make adjustments, and we're going to do that, and we're going to move right into UFC 314. So without any further ado, let's kick it off with the first fight up on our picks. All right, first up in the middleweight division, you have a battle between Tresean Gore taking on Marco Tulio Silva. Exactly what I just talked about is something that we can use to analyze this fight right here. Tresean Gore, Marco Tulio Silva. Tresean Gore takes on Brian Battle in his second to last fight and has a very competitive fight with him. But the volume, pace, and pressure of Brian Battle is what, squeaked out that win. But the technical striking of Tresean Gore, the high guard, the right hands over the top, the left hook, the jab into the left hook, the straight right hand, the leg kicks. He's very tight and compact, but he can be hit and he can be rocked. He got knocked down and finished by Cody Brundage. He then came in against Antonio Tricoli, who's clearly not UFC level, and gets the guillotine choke in the first round. You look at the fight against Josh Fremd, he locked up a vicious and nasty guillotine choke. I think Tresean Gore is going to be competitive in this fight wherever it goes. However, I think if Marco Tulio Silva gets on top of Tresean Gore, the top pressure and the grappling with the submissions and the ground and pound, I think that's where Tulio Silva has the advantage in the grappling. With Tresean Gore, I think he has potential to win with his jiu-jitsu in the transitions from the striking to the grappling. The takedown entries, the takedown, explosions. That's where Gore can get that get that submission. And I think he can lock up a ninja choke. I think he could lock up a guillotine choke. I think on the feet, the more technical striker, I honestly think Gore is more technical than Marco Tulio Silva. But I also don't trust the durability of Tresean Gore. I think if Marco Tulio lands a pull counter right hand, if he lands a 1-2 down the middle, he's got flying knees in his arsenal as well. Good spinning back kicks to the body, which is what he used to get the finish on the Contender Series. I don't like his defense. I don't like his movement. I think Ihor Potieria was a pretty easy fight for Marco Tulio Silva, and he looked great. There wasn't really any adversity he had to come through in that one. He hurt him, dropped him, and knocked him out in the first round. That's about as good of a UFC debut as you can ask to have, especially coming off the Contender Series where most guys tend to lose that UFC debut. I think this fight, realistically, is 50-50. I think Gore can compete with Tulio Silva on the feet. I think Tresean Gore is tighter in his striking offense and defense, and the transition from the offense and the striking to the defense. I think he's got tighter Thai boxing. I also think Silva has a lot of power to where even if he is super tight in his defense, if one sneaks through, Tulio Silva could rock him and then cause him to shoot. And I could even see Marco Tulio Silva getting a submission victory in this fight by rocking Gore and then forcing him to shoot and grabbing his neck in a guillotine. I think this fight has a very high possibility to end via a front choke. I think Gore, like I said, could catch Tulio Silva in the transition and in the takedown attempts, lock up a guillotine. We know he's super famous for that specific submission. Lifted Josh Fremd off the floor and pretty much ripped his head off of his shoulders and put him to sleep. Got that quick submission over Antonio Tricoli, but I don't really rate Tricoli too high. I think this is a tougher fight than Antonio Tricoli, but the UFC experience also moves a little bit towards the side of Tresean Gore. I'm going to take, like I said, it's 50-50 for me. This is one of the harder fights to predict on the card for me, to be honest. I'm going to go with, let me really think about this one. I go with Contender Series guys so much, and I don't want to. But again, the styles make fights. So breaking this one down, I'm going to take Marcos Tulio Silva by knockout. I think he's going to clip the chin of Tresean Gore, and I think he's going to put him down. I like Tulio Silva. Would I tell you to run and bet on him? No. Would I say that it's worth taking a shot on the underdog in Gore? I think it's possible. Yeah, I think he could win. I think if you want to take a shot on Gore, it's probably Gore by submission. And if you want to really boost that up, you probably take Tresean Gore by submission. But I think Silva's going to crack the chin of Gore before Gore can get anything going. So give me Marco Tulio Silva round 1 knockout over Tresean Gore. That's the pick. Not super confident in it, but that's what I'm going to go with, and I'm going to stick to what I think is going to happen. All right, next fight up is in the flyweight division. You have a battle between Sumudaerji, 16-7, taking on Mitch Raposo, who's coming off that decision loss to Andre Mascote Lima. I'm going to be honest, I'm going to come straight out and tell you I like the underdog here in Mitch Raposo. I played Mitch Raposo KO 1-2 against Andre Lima. That was really before I took the time to understand how good and how technical Andre Lima was. In this fight, I think Sumudaerji has a decent jab. He has decent speed in his hands, but I think people are going to take how many times he rocked Matt Schnell, and kind of overestimate that going into this fight. Matt Schnell's always been chinny. He's one of the most chinny guys in the UFC. In the words of Conor McGregor, a gust of wind, and he does the chicken dance. It's kind of a similar thing with Matt Schnell, and the fact that he wasn't able to put him out actually is more of a red flag for me, and then to get submitted and almost TKO'd, and then submitted after he came back. I understand he blew his wad, hunting for a finish, went too hard on it and didn't get it. You go and you watch his fight against Charles Johnson, he did seem to make improvements to his grappling, to his jiu-jitsu, almost locked into triangles, transitioned to the triangle armbar, but Charles Johnson was able to get out. I do think Sumudaerji has made a lot of improvements in his MMA career. I think his striking is decent. He uses his range and his reach. But in this one, I think Mitch Raposo is going to be able to get on the inside. I think if on the feet it is competitive, I think he's going to be able to use his wrestling. And I don't see Sumudaerji getting a submission win. I think maybe he could lock in a submission, but I think Raposo would get out. And I think Raposo on the top of Sumudaerji with ground and pound and looking to transition into the mount, potentially looking for an arm triangle, similar to what Tim Elliott did. I don't really think Mudaerji... I think he's made improvements, but I still don't think he's that good on the ground. And if Raposo's on top of him, I could see a ground and pound finish. I could see a submission. And on the feet, I think people are going to look at Mudaerji's experience level and the fighters he's fought in the UFC, which is important. But I think the more technical striker, the sharper striker, the striker who doesn't leave as much quote-unquote fat in his movements, I think it's Mitch Raposo. I think Raposo could land that clean left hook on the chin of Sumudaerji. We've seen him get rocked on the feet. We've seen him get dropped. We've seen him get hurt and cover up. We've seen him get submitted. 6 out of his 7 losses for Sumudaerji do come by way of submission. So many people might just lean 100% towards submission, but this guy has been rocked. This guy has been stumbled. This guy has almost been TKO'd. Should have got TKO'd by Charles Johnson. Don't get me started because I had a play on Charles Johnson KO 2-3, I think at plus 1,800, and that should have cashed for me every day of the week, but he let him recover and almost got submitted in the process. I think we do tend to overestimate Charles Johnson in certain areas. I'm a big Charles Johnson fan. I've picked him to win plenty of fights, but I think we kind of overestimate how good he is at the highest level, and sometimes we underestimate him in other fights. He's one of those fighters where I don't think people can 100% get a read on him, and I think the performance against Sumudaerji was good, but people are going to look at the fact that Mudaerji almost locked in that submission, almost had him out of there, almost had a submission against a guy who's pretty much known as being a better grappler than Mudaerji, and kind of run with it into this fight because of that UFC experience and because of the fact that he did almost pull a win out of his ass after getting TKO'd, basically, but the ref didn't stop it again. I think Raposo has the cleaner boxing. I think Raposo is going to be better at getting on the inside. I think even if the striking is competitive, I expect Raposo to change levels and use his wrestling to get on top of Mudaerji, where I think he's going to be able to avoid the guard play and potentially fight out of that half guard or the side control or the full mount and can land ground and pound to get a finish or use the ground and pound to soften him up and eventually look for a submission. I'm going to take the underdog. I'm going to take Mitch Raposo to get the job done here via a second round arm triangle choke submission. I do think he wins by sub, but I think the KO is very live on the feet because I like the way this guy uses his hands. I like the way how his right hand, his left hook, his 1-2, his jab, it's all very crisp and very clean. He trains under Tyson Chartier, and most of those guys, Rob Font, Kelvin Cater, do have very clean boxing and especially a clean jab, and I could see Mudaerji leaving himself open and getting wrecked with a right hand or getting wrecked with that left hook and getting sat down and potentially TKO'd. So Raposo is going to be the pick. Give me Mitch Raposo, second round arm triangle choke submission. I think he gets Mudaerji out of there and hands him another submission loss. All right, next fight up is in the middleweight division. You have a battle between SD Dumas, Cedriquez the Reaper Dumas, taking on Michal Oleksiejczuk. I'm not going to take a lot of time on this one. I like Michal Oleksiejczuk by knockout. I think he beats the shit out of Cedriquez Dumas. I think there's a possibility that Dumas could win by submission, kind of like a fluky Kevin Holland style where, Oleksiejczuk gets cracked with like a random shot and shoots and gets guillotined. I think Dumas could potentially grab the neck of Oleksiejczuk and submit him. But I think the ground and pound and I think the striking on the feet is just going to be way too much for Dumas. Do I supremely trust Oleksiejczuk? No. Do I trust Dumas? Absolutely not. But I think Oleksiejczuk should have this guy covered. I think he knocks him out in the first round. I think he walks him down, pressures him, maybe gets hit with 1 or 2 decent shots, but eventually lands that big left hand, hurts him, jumps on him, and gets the TKO in round 1. Like I said, Dumas is live to potentially get a submission if Oleksiejczuk makes a mistake and potentially follows him to the ground and gets caught in a triangle or an armbar, or if he gets rocked in an exchange and shoots and gets his neck caught in a guillotine. I think Dumas, really the only way for him to win, in my opinion, is a guillotine or a submission finish. And I just don't think it's going to happen, man. Like, this guy's not on the level of a Kevin Holland or, I know Michel Pereira got a sub, but he's nowhere near the level of a Michel Pereira either. I think this is an easy TKO win for Michal Oleksiejczuk, but do I completely trust him? No, because he hasn't looked that great recently in the UFC. And Dumas, you really just don't have any confidence in him. I mean, yeah, he beat one guy, I forgot who it even was. He beat one guy by decision as an underdog, and then that was about all he really had to offer. So, yeah, give me Michal Oleksiejczuk. Give me Oleksiejczuk via round 1 TKO. I think he gets Dumas out of there, and I think it's pretty much what everybody expects. So, yeah, I'm going to go Oleksiejczuk or Oleksiejczuk via round 1 TKO. All right, next fight up is a battle in the featherweight division. A very solid fight, a fan-friendly fight, one that's probably going to end via a finish. You have Darren, the Damage Elkins, taking on Julian Juicy J. Erosa. Let's be real here, guys. You know, the cardio, the forward pressure, the wrestling of Darren Elkins, it cannot be underestimated. If this guy gets out of your submission attempts, if this guy pushes forward and gets in your face, he will wear you down. He will get on top of you. He will use that wrestling pressure, the good old-fashioned wrestling, to tire you out and drain you to looking towards a finish. Good ground and pound, good top pressure, hunting for submissions, and really solid submission defense. Does he have great defense on the feet? No. Only submission loss in Darren Elkins' career has actually come via an armbar to Charles do Bronx Oliveira, one of the best Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu practitioners in all of MMA. So I think a lot of people are going to say, well, there's really no way that a guy like Elkins is going to get submitted by a guy like Julian Erosa. Let me tell you something, brothers. Yes, there is. I think Julian Erosa is going to win this fight by guillotine choke. I'm going to tell you that right now. I think it could be a Darce. I think it could be potentially a ninja choke. But I think Julian Erosa is going to be beating up Elkins on the feet. I think he's going to get taken down a couple times, but I think he'll work his way up to the feet. I think he's going to be active off of his back. And I think eventually Elkins is going to leave his head in there for a little bit too long, and I think he's going to get submitted. The way Erosa got that guillotine against Christian Rodriguez was supremely impressive. He reached around to the far side, stuck his hand under the neck, figure forward the legs in a body triangle, and twisted it and got that tap immediately. I mean, when he sunk that in, that was a wrap. Against Ricardo Ramos, the famous guillotine tap-out merchant. I mean, he gets submitted by guillotine in most of his losses. Again, similar thing, shoot a takedown, boom, immediately jump the guillotine. Now, do I think Elkins is going to be prepared for guillotine defense? Do I think Elkins is going to be prepared to defend those chokes because that is the go-to submission of a Julian Erosa? Yes, if it stays on the feet, I think Erosa is much more powerful. I think I wouldn't say he's much more durable because even though Erosa's got 2 wins in a row, I mean, this guy, his durability is not the best either. We've seen Erosa get knocked out by Alex Bruce Leroy Caceres, who doesn't really knock out anybody. He landed that little level change head kick and put him down. And even in the Christian Rodriguez fight, I mean, he was getting touched up with that right hand, hit with the jab, but he was coming back. He was getting hit and he was coming back, getting into the fire. I don't see a world where Elkins wins by knockout on the feet. I could see a world where maybe he does slow down Erosa, avoids the submission attempts, gets on top, and wins by ground and pound, or potentially a submission if he just beats him up on the ground and tires him out. But I got to go with Juicy J here. I think Julian Erosa wins, and I think he wins by submission. I know people are going to say, well, he only got submitted by Charles Oliveira and this and that. I mean, Elkins puts himself in guillotine chokes a lot. And he knows how to get out. He knows how to hop to the other side. He knows how to jump over the top and try to spin out, bridge, and turn back into the opponent. I mean, yeah, he has great defense. He fights out of Team Alpha Male, one of the best guillotine practitioners and defenders in terms of a gym in the game of MMA. But Erosa is long. Erosa can get these guillotines from angles that other fighters cannot. If he can't get a guillotine, he could get a Darce choke. He could get an anaconda. We've seen him get multiple submissions that are done due to his long frame, the long torso, the long legs, the long arms. And I think Elkins is going to shoot. I think he's going to leave his head there for a ninja choke, for a guillotine, etc. And I think he's going to get submitted. I'm going to take Julian Erosa by a round 2 guillotine choke submission. Could be a Darce choke, could be a ninja choke. It could be any one of those. But I think he's going to leave his neck there, and I think he's going to get subbed. I could also see a knockout from Erosa. He's got flying knees, decent boxing, solid power, good combinations. Again, not the best defense, but not a big power puncher in Darren Elkins. So give me Julian Erosa, round 2 guillotine choke submission. I think he grabs that neck, is too long for Elkins to defend, and gets that submission. Give me Juicy J by sub in this one. All right, next up in the lightweight division, you have a battle between Jim A10 Miller taking on Chase the Dream Hooper. This is a fight that's going to play out a lot in the jiu-jitsu, and I see a lot of people on the heavy favorite in Chase Hooper. I get it, you know. I think people are expecting him to take down Miller, get to his back, get a rear naked choke, you know, find a guillotine. He's very long. He has a very long frame. His striking is getting better. I mean, he put a lot of volume on Nick Fiore, took him down, looked for a sub. He submitted Jordan Levitt, who's a great jiu-jitsu practitioner, and also Jim Miller is getting older. He's getting older, and a lot of the times, you know, eventually these old fighters, they fall off the tracks. But I'm going to tell you what, I am not a Chase Hooper believer. I believe in Jim Miller. I believe in Miller as a big underdog, and I think he's going to get it done. I still don't think Chase Hooper has great defense on the feet. I still think he is an extreme liability in terms of his chin. I think the more durable fighter is Jim Miller. Miller has been submitted. I mean, if we pull up his record really quick, let's see. Let's go over here. We're going to go back, and we're going to pull up Jim Miller. 38-18 in terms of a record. He's been submitted only 3 times in 18 losses. 17% of his losses come by way of submission. I do not think Jim Miller is going to get ground and pounded from the full mount by this kid in Chase Hooper. I don't really think he's going to be able to knock out Jim Miller on the feet. 13 of his 18 losses come by decision. I think there is a possibility that Chase Hooper does win those positional battles and wins by decision, but I gotta be real with you guys. I think Jim Miller is too much for Chase Hooper. People are going to sit here, oh, Chase Hooper's looking good. He's been looking good. 15-3-1. He's on a 2-fight win streak. All right, he's on a win streak against Borschev, who, yes, is a good fighter, but a notoriously bad grappler, and a win over Clay Guida. Jim Miller killed Clay Guida when they fought the last time, and Clay Guida got out-wrestled and out-grappled by a younger kid. Jim Miller's a better fighter than Clay Guida. I'm not going to sit here and tell you anything different. Not only did he beat him in the UFC, he also beat him in a grappling competition. He lost to Steve Garcia, and look, it was because of the power. Jim Miller could easily knock out Chase Hooper. I think the minute you touch this kid's chin, people are going to say, oh, he's got a chin, he's got a chin, he's got a chin. The power that Jim Miller has, now do I consider him a knockout artist? No. But the power he has, I don't think Chase Hooper can take that power. And I think if he shoots in on a takedown to try to avoid it, I think Miller could lock up a guillotine just like he did against another standout wrestler, another decent grappler in Damon Jackson. Shot in on a takedown, boom, immediately gets submitted. I think Jim Miller finishes Chase Hooper. Now, could I see Chase Hooper winning? You know, Miller is older. Sure. Like, I'm not surprised that Hooper is the favorite, but this number makes no sense. And in terms of a well-rounded mixed martial artist, I think Jim Miller is much more well-rounded. Is he getting older? Does age play a factor? Yes. But if there's any type of fighter I think Jim Miller can still beat, it's a guy like Chase Hooper. A lot of volume on the feet, not too much power, really solid jiu-jitsu, you know, good wrestling, but not the best wrestling. Could get rocked easily, shoot a bad takedown, get subbed. I like Jim Miller here. I like Jim Miller to win inside the distance. It could be a sub. It could be a knockout. I'm going to take Jim Miller by TKO. I could see a decision as well. I think he could do more damage and, you know, win some positional battles himself, avoid the submissions, and potentially just win based off damage. A lot of damage is being, you know, counted in these decisions nowadays. But give me Jim Miller by knockout. I'm going to take Jim Miller round 2 knockout over Chase Hooper. I think Miller's got a lot of power. I think he can defend a lot of the grappling scenarios. And like I said, this is a guy who's only been submitted, what did we say, 3 times? Yeah, 3 times out of his 18 losses. So 38-18 out of, you know, 56 fights, he's been submitted 3 times. And in terms of how many submission wins he has, 21 submission wins. So, take it into consideration. Oh, he's old. He can beat a guy like Chase Hooper. Give me Jim Miller round 2 KO in this fight, and I really like him as the underdog. All right, let's keep it going. We're on to the women's strawweight division with a pretty interesting matchup between Xiaonan taking on Virna Jandiroba. Listen, this is a striker versus grappler, okay? We know that if you watch UFC, if you watch these fighters before, or if you've watched them, you know what you're going to expect. A lot of jiu-jitsu style takedowns from Jandiroba, a lot of single legs, transitioning into the body lock, backside trips, inside trips, rolling, not really rolling for leg locks, but just very untraditional takedowns, I'll say. There's not really going to be a double or a single. It's going to be like a single to reach to the far hip, to transition, try to get the one hook in, drag the opponent down to the ground, and things like that. Those, I feel like, are going to be a little bit harder for Xiaonan to defend. Because I think her takedown defense overall, I know that the numbers say that it's at like a 63%, but I think it's better in actual competition. And on the feet, there is no competition. On the mat, I think Jandiroba is the better grappler. I mean, I don't think that's something you have to sit here and think about very long to understand. I think later in the fight, I'm going to look at it like this. I could see a round 2-3 sub for Virna, and I could see a round 2-3 knockout for Xiaonan. Xiaonan is very good with her lateral movement, very good in and out, good 1-2s down the middle. Her straight punches are her best weapons. Not really hooks or uppercuts per se, but the jabs and the crosses are going to be the way that she kind of picks apart Jandiroba. I would venture to say probably not the best idea to throw naked leg kicks. Don't throw knees up the middle unless you have the timing down correctly, because she can slip to the outside of the knee and transition that into a takedown, or transition it to work her way up to the body lock and then work from there to get those takedowns or get the grappling position she wants to be able to get the game where she needs to get it in order to win, or get Xiaonan where she needs to get her in order to dominate, because I do think that it is domination for Jandiroba when she gets Xiaonan down to the mat. I'm a bigger fan of Xiaonan, but I can't just pick fights based off who I'm a bigger fan of. I gotta go Jandiroba by submission. I mean, I've picked against this girl so many times, and she just finds a way to wiggle and weasel her way to get to these positions and get that sub. That submission over Amanda Lemos was extremely impressive, especially to get it as early as she did, because nobody really dominates Amanda Lemos in the grappling, especially early. And like I said, if it stays on the feet, I think Xiaonan boxes her face off, but I don't really think that's going to matter. I think eventually Virna Jandiroba is going to get in on those hips, get to that body lock, use that chain grappling, and get Xiaonan down to the ground. And I think she does find a submission. Give me Virna Jandiroba, second round rear naked choke. I just think she's going to submit her. I want Xiaonan to win. Like I said, much bigger fan of her. Will I sprinkle the round 2-3 knockout for Xiaonan? I'm probably going to, because I think the number is going to be a little bit crazy. And another thing is, Xiaonan has fought a lot of very high-level grapplers, but it's just a different kind of grappling. Like Mackenzie Dern and Virna Jandiroba, I know people are going to make comparisons to those two. It's not really the same, because Mackenzie really only hunts for one submission. Virna will hunt for every type of submission, and she's very active looking for those submissions. So give me Virna Jandiroba, round 2 rear naked choke. Like I said, I want Xiaonan to win, but I cannot pick her here. I think Virna is going to get the sub. All right, next fight up is in the featherweight division. It is going to be the main event of the prelims section of the card, and it is a battle between the number 15 ranked Dan 50K Ige taking on the long, rangy striker coming off a knockout victory over Fernando Padilla and Sean the Sniper Woodson. Man, Woodson's tough to beat regardless. 6'2 versus 5'7. The length, the reach, the distance control, the jabs, the 1-2s. I mean, he put on a boxing clinic against Fernando Padilla. But I think that Kyle Nelson fight with Fernando Padilla kind of opened our eyes to the fact that, yeah, he knocked out Erosa. Yeah, he's got a couple finishes in the UFC. But honestly speaking, maybe we overrated maybe we overrated Fernando Padilla just a little bit. Woodson is not known as a knockout artist. He beat the brakes off Padilla and knocked him out. Now, is that the power and the knockout upside of Sean Woodson, or is that the durability concerns and the lack thereof durability on the side of Fernando Padilla? It could be both. It really could. I think Dan Ige, these are the type of fights that Dan Ige is going to win. And I look back to the Luis Saldana fight. Saldana was a big underdog against Woodson. Woodson gets rocked early, sat down bad with a jab, and then Saldana follows up with a knee to a grounded opponent and doesn't get the TKO. Woodson fights his way back in after he's given time to recover. The fight continues, and he comes back from adversity. You know, he's a guy who can come back from adversity. He can weather that storm, at least in the Saldana fight, and come back. And we haven't really seen him get rocked in any fights past that Luis Saldana fight. And that is a tip of the cap to a guy like Woodson. Very long, very rangy, going to have a huge length and reach advantage in this fight against Dan Ige. And if he can stay on the outside, then I think he can have a lot of success, and I think Ige will wear damage. You know, we've seen him get busted up. We've seen him get bruised. I feel like he would wear the damage a little bit more than Sean Woodson. But this is the thing with Dan Ige. A lot of people underrate this guy. A lot of people discount this guy. And to be honest, I did in the Andre Fili fight. I thought Fili was going to kind of pick him apart on the outside, use the kicks, use the boxing, and just beat him up and not allow Ige to crash the pocket and crash the distance. He timed his jab, slipped on the inside, knocked him out with one shot. I think this fight is very similar to the Andre Fili fight. Now, there are some differences, obviously. The length, the reach, the distance. I don't think Ige is going to knock him out in one round. I don't think he's going to catch him as cold and as clean as he did with, Andre Touchy-Fili. I don't think it's going to be that quick and that's it, a KO. But I do think Ige is going to find the chin of Sean Woodson. Yes, he's tall. Yes, he knows how to use his length. Yes, he knows how to use his reach. But he's not going to wrestle. I feel like if anybody's going to wrestle, it might be Ige, but I think he's going to work his way to the inside, and I think eventually he's going to land either that left hook or that overhand right on the chin of Sean Woodson, and I think he's going to knock him out cold. I like the underdog in Ige here. Is it a tough fight? Yes. Is it going to be hard to get past the length, get past the reach, and get to the distance and position you need to in order to get your game off? Yes, it's going to be difficult, but I think Ige is going to do it. He might get jabbed up a little bit early. He might be losing that first round, but I think in round 2, he's going to close in. He's going to use that lateral movement. He's going to find that opening, and he's going to hit him with that left hook right on the jaw, and I think he's going to put Sean Woodson down for a round 2 knockout. Give me the underdog. Give me Dan 50K Ige to halt Sean Woodson's movement up the rankings and get a knockout victory. These are the type of fights I think Dan Ige wins, and I'm going to go with 50K here to get on the inside and land that vicious left hook right on his chin and knock him out. Give me Dan 50K Ige via second round knockout over Sean Woodson as the underdog in this spot. I think Ige finds the chin, and I think he puts the sniper down with a big bomb. All right, next fight up is in the light heavyweight division. First fight on the main card between Nikita the Miner Krylov taking on Dominic the Devastator Reyes. This is an extremely tough fight to predict, and I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I'm leaning heavily one way or another. I really think this fight is 50-50. If you look at Nikita Krylov, let's pull him up really quick. He's ranked number 8 in the division. Dominic Reyes ranked number 11. But the last time we saw Krylov in the octagon was back in March of 2023. This guy's been gone for 2 years. Now, that doesn't mean a ton, but it means a lot when predicting a fight. What improvements has Krylov made in 2 years? What adjustments has he made in 2 years? And, it's kind of like a reverse. Because if we booked this fight 2 years ago, I think Nikita Krylov would be like a minus 400 favorite over Dominic Reyes, because Reyes got knocked out a bunch of times, lost three times in a row, got KO'd. Now, if you look at Dominic Reyes, he's back on a 2-fight win streak with a knockout in the first round over Dustin Jacoby and a knockout over Anthony Smith via ground and pound. I'm going to be honest, I do not count that Anthony Smith win for anything. Smith is done. He's been done for a while, and it's not really, I'm not sitting here trying to disrespect him, even though I know it's coming off as disrespectful. He's just been done for a while, and he wins a couple fights, like he won the Vitor Petrino fight, and I was a huge Anthony Smith fan back in the day, but at this point in time, I don't think a win over Anthony Smith really means anything for Dominic Reyes. The win over Dustin Jacoby, I think it means a lot. Smith submitted Vitor Petrino. Dustin Jacoby knocked out Vitor Petrino in a fight that he was losing by decision. Boom, got caught with that right hand to counter the check hook and got dropped, knocked out cold. I think on the feet, Dominic Reyes is much better, but I almost think Krylov can make it competitive when he uses the striking to engage in the grappling, getting into the Muay Thai clinch, the Thai plum, the single collar clinch. I think uppercuts, elbows, knees from inside the clinch could work good for Nikita Krylov. But if you look at Dominic Reyes as well, most of the success of Nikita Krylov comes off of the ground. He has 12 KOs, 16 submissions, but 23 of his finishes come in the first round. I think we're going to see heavy pressure, multiple takedown attempts, chain wrestling, trying to work from inside the clinch, trying to get trips, and looking to take Dominic Reyes down. Dominic Reyes is a guy that is not easy to take down. He is not easy to take down. And on the feet, I think it is a Dominic Reyes fight, but I also think Krylov can make it close. On the ground, I think Krylov could submit Dominic Reyes if he's on top. But this is a really tough fight because we don't really know if Dominic Reyes is back yet. Everybody, Reyes is back, Reyes is back. The win over Jacoby was impressive. The win over Anthony Smith, it doesn't really matter. So, to me, so he's got one good win, 3 losses back to back of brutal knockouts. And he got knocked out cold by Ryan Spann. Spann has a lot of power. That can happen to anybody. And Nikita Krylov submitted Ryan Spann, but also almost got submitted in a guillotine and then a Darce choke. So I think there's a lot of similarities between the two. I think that this is a good fight in terms of stylistic matchmaking. I understand why these two are matched up together, but we don't know what kind of Krylov we're going to get based off him being gone for 2 years. And I saw pretty good takedown defense from Dominic Reyes in the Anthony Smith fight. Even though Smith isn't the best wrestler, he's still the best aspect of his game besides his jab is his wrestling. I'm going to take Dominic Reyes to win by decision. I think he's going to win 2 out of the 3 rounds, and I think it's possible he gets a KO. Volkanovski hurt Nikita Krylov early, so it's possible he knocks him out. I think if Krylov wins, it's by submission, but Reyes' chin, like I said, he might still be chinny. Krylov could knock him out. So I think this is a stay-away fight either way. I wouldn't bet on Krylov. I wouldn't bet on Reyes. I wouldn't bet on a KO. I wouldn't bet on a submission. I think this fight is extremely unpredictable, and I really think this is 50-50 right down the middle. Either guy can win. Either guy can get a KO. I think Krylov's more likely for a sub. Dominic Reyes could stuff the takedowns, but Krylov could be durable enough to work on the inside, and it could go 15 minutes. I'm going to go Dominic Reyes, 29-28 split decision over Nikita Krylov, but I would not be surprised if Krylov knocked him out, and I wouldn't be surprised if Krylov got a sub. But give me the underdog. Give me Dominic Reyes to win, 29-28 split decision. All right, up next we have the debut of the former Bellator featherweight champion in Patricio Pitbull, taking on the former interim UFC featherweight champion in Yair Rodriguez. This is an amazing fight. This is honestly one of my most look forward to fights on the entire card. you have the forward pressure, front foot heavy boxing approach with knockout power from Patricio Pitbull, and you have the on the outside flashy kickboxing, karate, traditional martial arts style of Yair Rodriguez. Rodriguez is more than live to head kick Pitbull. He can catch him with body kicks and hurt him to the body, kind of like he did to Josh Emmett. And he does have a sneaky grappling game. I mean, he technically got a submission over Brian Ortega. We know that was more of like an injury than anything after they rematched each other. But on the feet, I mean, this guy's explosive. He's in and out. He's coming forward. He's got power in his hands, and he's got brutal kicks, round kicks to the body, head kicks, two-touch roundhouse kicks where he touches you with the lead leg and then head kicks you with the rear leg. Even landed a two-touch flying roundhouse kick knockout at UFC 197 against Andre Touchy-Feely. That's a knockout that I think a lot of people tend to forget. But looking at this fight, I think it comes down to ranges. You know, is Pitbull going to grapple? If Pitbull grapples, he will look like the heavy favorite. If he looks to stand and strike, it's going to be close and it's going to be competitive, but it's going to be competitive in certain ranges. If we're at boxing range and clinch range, I think Pitbull wins that fight around 75% of the time. If we're outside of that range, if we're just outside of boxing range, if we get to that kicking range, that's where I think Pitbull's going to have a lot of trouble. I think Yair will throw those inside and outside low kicks. I think he'll be looking to land that front snap kick to the body. Maybe trying to time it with a spinning back kick. And I mean, Yair still has a lot of speed and a lot of power. It would not surprise me one bit if he knocked out Pitbull. You know, Pitbull is getting old. He's getting up there. But Yair is also an older fighter, at least in terms of mixed martial arts competition at the highest level. You know, this is Pitbull's first fight in the UFC. And a lot of people tend to fade these guys coming into the UFC in their debut. But for guys who are really successful in the highest level outside of the UFC, they tend to do well. This isn't like a contender series guy coming into the UFC with no real like high level experience. This is a guy who is a multiple time champion. A guy who has a knockout victory over Michael Chandler. He has decent wrestling, solid takedowns, and I think the smartest option would be to try to crowd the kicker. You hear it all the time. Crowd the kicker, push him against the fence, get into boxing range, make him respect your hands, level change, and take him down. Does Yair have good wrestling or good jiu-jitsu? Yes, you know, he can get triangles. He'll throw up his legs. I don't think he's going to submit Pitbull. I don't think he's going to look for submissions against Pitbull. And if he does, I think Pitbull can reverse those positions and wind up taking the back of Yair Rodriguez. Maybe locking in a rear naked choke. Maybe beating him up with ground and pound, locking in an arm triangle submission. I could see Pitbull winning this fight by submission more times than I can't. I mean, really. I think Yair is going to be at a massive disadvantage if Pitbull uses the wrestling. And I also think Yair is not good off the back foot. He's very good going forward. He's very good when he has his range and his reach, and he's able to use those front kicks, and he's able to throw up those flashy techniques, and he's able to manage the distance and range. I don't really think Pitbull's going to give him that option. I think Pitbull's going to be in his face. He's going to have that bladed stance. Or, you know, it's more of a traditional stance now than it used to be, the in-and-out Henry Cejudo stance. He kind of tightened it up a little bit. I think he's going to be walking forward. Yeah, he's going to take low kicks. Yeah, he's going to take body kicks. Like I said, I think Yair is more than live to get a knockout, especially early. And Pitbull is getting older, but he has a lot of experience. 36-7. He's got 24 of those 36 wins coming by way of finish. 12 KOs, 12 submissions. The guy's well-rounded. I think he's going to get in the face of Yair. I think he's going to have to walk through some adversity in the first round, but I think he's going to close the distance. I think he's going to start landing his boxing combinations on Yair Rodriguez, pushing him up against the fence, the jab, the left hook, the 1-2. This guy has knockout power. He can clip Yair. We've seen Yair hurt. We've seen him get rocked. I think he hurts Yair Rodriguez. I think he uses his wrestling, pushes him against the fence, gets takedowns, and I think in the third round, I think he's beating him up with ground and pound, and I think he submits him with an arm triangle. I'm going to go with Patricio Pitbull to win his UFC debut via a third-round submission. I think he's going to beat him up on the ground, not respect the distance management and range, get into the distance he needs to get into, boxing range, clinch range, land his shots on Yair, whose chin isn't the greatest, take him down, beat him up, and submit him. Give me Patricio Pitbull, third round, arm triangle choke submission. I think he makes a statement in his UFC debut. Do I think he's going to be the champion? I don't think he's going to win the belt, but I think he's going to win this fight, and I think he's going to look good doing so. He's just going to have to get past that first 5 minutes. This is also a 3-round fight, not a 5-round fight, so that does play a factor in this overall fight. And like I said, Yair could rock him. He could knock him out. He could put him down. I'm not discrediting him, but I think Pitbull's going to have the right game plan. I think he's going to survive some adversity early. I think he's going to walk forward, land those combinations, land them power shots on Yair, back him up, get him on that back foot, take him down, and submit him. Give me Patricio Pitbull, round 3 arm triangle choke submission over Yair Rodriguez in his UFC debut. All right, next fight up is in the featherweight division. You have a battle between Bryce Thug Nasty Mitchell taking on Gene Lord Silva. Guys, I mean, listen, I'm not going to sit here and take 100 years to explain what I think is going to happen. I think Gene Silva's going to knock Bryce Mitchell out in the first round. I'm not going to sit here and play games with you. Do I think Bryce Mitchell's the better grappler? Yes. Do I think he has a chance to win this fight if he can get that wrestling early? Yes. Do I think people are going to compare this to Pat Sabatini and Joe Anderson Brito from last week? Yes. Do I think that there's really a high-level comparison? No, I don't. Gene Silva is so much more reserved and calm in terms of seeing things coming than a Joe Anderson Brito, so I don't really think you can make the same comparison. Gene Silva picks his shots, he finds his openings, he stays patient, he enjoys being in the fight, he's very loose, very ready to go, and even in takedowns, like, yeah, he got taken down by Charles Jourdain, but he really got taken down because he jumped that guillotine, and then he tried to use it to sweep, etc., etc. I don't think he's going to look to sub Bryce Mitchell, but, Ilia Topuria did, and Topuria was thought to be the guy to knock out Bryce Mitchell, and then he dropped him and he submitted him. So there's always that possibility, that Silva maybe hurts Bryce Mitchell and locks up his neck. We've seen Mitchell get submitted before. I believe he also got submitted by Brad Katona on The Ultimate Fighter. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure he got submitted on Tough at a certain point. But in this fight, man, I don't see Bryce Mitchell having prolonged grappling success. I don't see him taking Gene Silva down and controlling him. I don't see him submitting Gene Silva. I mean, if he's going to win, that's how he's going to win. He's going to take him down. He's going to submit him. I don't think that happens. I don't think he gets a takedown. And I think if he does get a takedown, I think Silva probably just batters him, lands elbows to the side of his head, hammer fists, and works his way back up and stays patient and calm. I don't really think we're even going to get to that point, though, because I think Gene Silva's going to crack the chin of Bryce Mitchell in the first round and knock him out. Could Silva play it patient? Could he play it safe? Sure. But I don't think that's the type of fighter Silva is. I know some people are going to sit here and say, he's reckless, he's a wild man, he's this, he's that. Yes, he is a wild man, but if you watch the way that he fights, he's very smart. He takes good angles. He finds that outside foot on the opposite stance. He opens up the targets for his punches, throws good kicks, very good shot selection, good defense, sees a lot of things coming. Yeah, I think this is a slaughter of Bryce Mitchell here, and I think Dana White knows exactly what he's doing. I think Gene Silva is going to knock Bryce Mitchell out early. I think he's going to do it viciously, and I think he gets him out of there in the first round. Give me Lord Gene Silva, round 1 knockout over Bryce Mitchell, and the sky's the limit for this kid. I think that he is going to butcher Bryce Mitchell and move right up towards that title shot. So give me Lord Gene Silva to win round 1 knockout over Bryce Mitchell. Now we are at the co-main event of the evening in the lightweight division. You have a battle between Iron Michael Chandler and Patty the Baddie Pimblett. This is a good fight. I seem to overestimate Chandler's ability, and I seem to underestimate Paddy Pimblett's ability, and that will direct me right into my prediction for this fight. Double chance alternate method of victory, Paddy Pimblett by submission or Michael Chandler by knockout. Listen to me. That's the way to play this fight. That's the way to play it. Because I think either Chandler comes forward and sparks Pimblett, who does keep his chin in the air and doesn't have good defense, or Paddy the Baddy Pimblett hurts Michael Chandler in an exchange, which is more than capable of happening, and then grabs his neck and gets a submission. Michael Chandler is a very good wrestler. Good takedowns, good throws, really solid grappling, or really solid wrestling. Not that good of grappling. If you're on top of him, if you're in a good position on top of him, he does not have great defense. Like, he had defense against Charles Oliveira, so I'll say I think his defense has improved. But I think that if Paddy gets him on the ground, I think Paddy is going to submit him. Maybe he stays in the mount and just pounds him out and does that, but I think he's going to take the path of least resistance. And if he rocks him, I think Chandler probably shoots, and then he'll jump right into a guillotine, potentially get subbed. I mean, we've seen Paddy Pimblett be able to chain guillotines to triangles, etc., and put everything together. I think Michael Chandler can also come forward, get in his face, and knock him out in the first round. If the right hand of Michael Chandler lands on the chin of Paddy Pimblett, he's going to sleep. The right hand, the left hook, Michael Chandler more than capable of getting a KO. If you're taking an underdog shot on Michael Chandler, I'm not mad at you, because he can definitely get a knockout in this fight, and Pimblett is not the best defensively. But I think it's time for me to make some changes, and I think it's time for me to stop doubting Paddy Pimblett. Dun, 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 dun. Dun, 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 dun. My pick's going to be Paddy Pimblett by submission. There it is. That is the prediction for this fight. I think Paddy Pimblett is going to find a way to get Michael Chandler to the ground or hurt him in an exchange, grab his neck in a guillotine, and submit him. Could be a rear naked choke. It could be a triangle. I think Paddy Pimblett wins this fight by submission. I think he grabs the neck of Michael Chandler. I think he submits him, and I think it's done pretty quickly. It could be round one. I'm going to go with a round two guillotine choke submission for Paddy the Baddy Pimblett over Michael Chandler. Chandler is a good offensive wrestler, a good defensive wrestler, not a very solid grappler in terms of the jiu-jitsu. I mean, he got submitted by Dustin Poirier. Poirier has great grappling. I'm not discrediting him, but nobody really gets submitted by Poirier, at least in the later stages of his career. He did get a triangle armbar earlier in his career against Max Holloway, but he's not really known for submissions. And I think Paddy Pimblett is just at a much higher level when the fight hits the mat. And I think Chandler's going to get his neck caught in that choke and get submitted. So give me Paddy the Baddy Pimblett to get the job done here. Round two guillotine choke submission. Could be round one. And like I said, Michael Chandler could get a knockout in the first round. Like best bet, path of least resistance, Chandler KO or Paddy Pimblett by submission, method of victory, alternate double chance. Or double chance alternate method of victory. But I'm going to go with the Baddy to get the job done here. I think he chokes out Michael Chandler. Give me Paddy the Baddy Pimblett round two guillotine choke submission in the co-main event of the evening. All right. Now we move to the main event of the evening. In the featherweight division for the vacant UFC featherweight championship, you have the former reigning defending champion, Alexander the Great Volkanovski, taking on the streaking contender, coming off a short notice replacement, or not short notice replacement win. What am I talking about? coming off of a win via decision over Brian T. City Ortega at UFC 306, UFC Noche, in Diego Lopes. Listen, guys, Volkanovski, I was one of the OG Volkanovski supporters. I picked him to beat Holloway both times. I picked him to beat I don't know if I picked him to beat Chad Mendes because I didn't really watch him up until that Mendes fight. But I picked him to beat Aldo. I picked him to beat Ortega. I picked him to beat Holloway all 3 times. I've picked him in a lot of fights. I picked him to beat Makhachev the first time, which I still think that was the correct prediction. But it is what it is. I picked him the second time against Makhachev. It didn't go his way. I picked Topuria to knock him out. He did. In this fight, it's tough because it's a 5-round fight. 3, 4, and 5, those 85% of the time, I think those go to Volkanovski. Even with the questions coming off the knockout loss, or the back-to-back knockouts, Volkanovski is going to come in ready. Volkanovski is going to come in shape. He's going to be using the lead hand to frame, moving left and right, inside low kick, switch stance, right hook, step back, jab, popping the jab. Diego Lopes is a very hittable fighter, and he can definitely be, picked apart and potentially finished in the 3rd, 4th, or 5th round. I think the first 2 rounds more than likely go to the side of Lopes on most occasions. But I think that, yes, the championship experience, it means something. The championship rounds, it means something. But this is also a different scenario than in Ilia Topuria. Topuria does have grappling, yes. He can go for submissions. I mean, we saw him submit the submission specialist in Bryce Mitchell. But Diego Lopes, his jiu-jitsu is dangerous. Extremely dangerous. Did he go for it really against Ortega? No. Did he slow down in the Ortega fight? Yes. Did he slow down in the Dan Ige fight, almost get finished? Yes. But he took that fight literally on like 5 hours notice. I don't care if he was getting ready for a fight. I don't care if he was getting ready for an opponent. It was a completely different stylistic matchup, and he still found a way to win. So you can't take that away from him. Look at the Gavin Tucker fight. Jumps into a flying triangle, switches it to a triangle armbar, snaps his arm immediately. Sadiq Youssef hurts him on the inside, uppercuts, hooks around the side. Diego Lopes has vicious, dirty boxing. Single collar clinch, rear uppercut, rear hook, rear uppercut, overhand right. I mean, if this guy gets Volkanovski inside the clinch, he can 100% knock him out. And if you remember, when he got hurt against Ilia Topuria, it was right kind of in that clinch range. Topuria put a lead hand frame on the shoulder of Volkanovski before he landed the right hand that knocked him out. They weren't at full boxing range. They were just in between boxing and clinch range. And Diego Lopes throws bombs from inside that clinch. He could land one uppercut in the clinch and knock Volkanovski out. He could land an overhand in the clinch or a hook and knock him out. He could hurt him inside the clinch, force Volkanovski to shoot and grab a guillotine and choke him out. Diego Lopes is a well-rounded mixed martial artist. I love Volkanovski. I've always been a Volk fan. Volk 345, 100% live if we get to that point. I think 90% of the time Volkanovski wins the 4th or 5th round. Or 4th and 5th round if we get that far. Potentially getting a finish by slowing down Lopes, putting the pressure on him, getting takedowns, getting in his face, landing his combinations, chopping the legs. I think Volkanovski puts a pace on him in those championship rounds. But the problem is, guys, I don't think we get that far. I think it's possible we make it to the 3rd round, but I don't even think this fight sees a 3rd round. I'm going to be honest with you guys. I don't think this fight sees the 2nd round. I'm going with and new Diego Lopes by knockout in this fight. I'm going with a round 1 knockout for Diego Lopes. Is that disrespectful? I don't think so. I don't think so. Because if anybody was a Volkanovski supporter, it's me. If anybody's been a Volkanovski supporter, it's been me. I'm one of the only people who picked him against Makhachev. So I don't want to hear it. I just think the explosiveness, the hunger, the fact that he is dual dangerous, he has great jiu-jitsu and very solid power on the feet. Is Volk the better striker technically? Yep. Does Volk have more volume? Yep. Does Volk have better cardio? Yep. Does Volk have the chance to drag this late? Yep. Does Volk probably finish him late? Yep. Does Volk have the better wrestling? Yep. But guess what? It's not going to matter because Diego Lopes is going to crack his chin. It's going to happen. It's going to happen. Diego Lopes is going to crack the chin of Volkanovski. Now the question is, does he knock him out cold or does he drop him and submit him? It could be either one because I think he could rock Volkanovski so bad to the point where he's like 80% gone and then just finish it off with a guillotine or an anaconda or a Darce choke. I mean, he locked up that anaconda choke against Dan Ige so fast in their fight and nobody talks about it. Ige got out of it, but if he rocks Volkanovski with a punch and jumps on an anaconda choke, I would not be surprised if he choked Volkanovski out cold with an anaconda choke after he rocked him. A little club and sub. I'm going to just go with a knockout. I think he lands a shot inside that clinch. An uppercut or an overhand. An uppercut or a hook on the same side, and I think he knocks out Volkanovski. Give me Diego Lopes, round 1 knockout, to become the new UFC featherweight champion and beat Alexander Volkanovski. All right, that's going to be it from my UFC 314 Volkanovski versus Lopes preview, predictions, and breakdown. I'm your host, Double M. Make sure to let me know your favorite bets, your favorite plays, your favorite parlays, your favorite underdogs, your favorite fight on the card. If you agree, if you disagree with me, let me know in the comments section below. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and smash the notification bell with a dirty boxing combination to rock yourself into all future uploads from the Touch 'em Up podcast here on YouTube. I'm your host, Double M, and enjoy the fights this weekend at UFC 314.